Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Social Media News Live. Hope you guys are awake on this Friday. It's another Friday here. Eric being a big yawn. Thank you that he got up in time. And Connor's here, by the way, too. So that's always good that he's up and at 'em. I guess you're an hour earlier than us, so whatever. Connor Brown, what's going on in your neck of the woods? Because I know this is like you're gearing up for travel, all this stuff. Talk about what's been going on. I know you got a new channel. I'll give you a little plug here to do your new channel and talk about that a little bit.
I have a new channel. It's just only Instagram right now. It's Theme Park Happy Hour. It's all about the best places to get drinks, the best drinks at the theme parks here in Orlando. Going on a cruise in a little bit, and I'll be doing some drinking content on there as well. But you're headed out somewhere sunny soon, aren't you, Jeff?
Yeah, heading to San Diego. I'm flying out tomorrow, so I'm heading up to Dallas tonight. Head out, hang out with my friends. So let me know if you're going to be at Social Media Examiner. I'd love to hang out with you. And, at the convention center, there's going to be plenty of hangout spots. So just hit me up, shoot me a message. That would be cool to see whomever is there. And Erik Fisher, how's Marion, Indiana, correct? Did I get that right?
It's going to get up to 70-something today.
Nice.
It was 80 yesterday. It's nuts.
That's nice.
So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be windy and hot, or at least warm. And I'm looking forward to a nice casual afternoon walk. So
yeah, this is I'm excited to do a travel, but it's travel. The gearing up for the travel, that's what stinks. So that's why I have Connor Brown, because he helps me. Hopefully he won't start showing up with bags under his eyes with all these he's now going to be this drinking influencer guy like Jay Bear. So we'll have to keep our eye on him and do an intervention.
Those island things that you put over here,
Yeah.
cucumbers.
That'll be good. Yeah, I know you have
for the plane or the cruise, right?
Well, we got some friends showing up already today. We got, I know this is Dustin Stout, waving hi. Magi shows up to our show because it's an amazing platform, and it is Magi-ical. So we're excited to have him here. We got our friend Rich Graham saying, hey, I have hay fever right now. It's because the pollen is so bad here in Texas. Maybe, Rich, I think you're in Texas, in the Dallas area as well, so you're probably getting all that nastiness. And Rich Watts from Addicted to Dirt PR is hand pink waving. So that is how it's pulling in today. So wave that pink hand. Be proud of it, Rich. And let's see. Gary Stockton is showing up. Good morning, good people. Thank you, Gary, for always being here. We got to figure out a conference so we can chill out again whenever you can get out and about, because I'd like to hang out with you in real life. But I'm going to talk today about our amazing guest, Erik Fisher, who has been doing productivity for, I don't know how long. How many years has your podcast been going, Erik?
Since August of 2012. So this August, so it's 12 and a half years, 13 this August. Is that right? Is that the math? Does that math work?
I don't know. I don't ever do math or spelling right? on live TV. Yeah. So
2025, so you subtract 12 and you get 13. So yes.
Yeah, because when we met, you had been podcasting for like 3 or 4 years, I think. Something like that. Anyway.
Yep, that's about right.
All right, so we're going to hit go on the podcast machine and get started. As we go today, make sure you guys ask your questions about productivity. If you have some great ideas, tips of your own, make sure you guys drop that in the chat. And also, if you know somebody who digs all this productivity stuff, make sure you mention them down below in the comments. Call them into the show, even if they can't watch it live. We would love to have a conversation with them later. With that, I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine, and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
Have you ever questioned what it really takes to be productive in a way that actually works for you? Are you searching for the best way to manage your time without feeling overwhelmed? Or maybe you're tired of productivity hacks that don't fit your lifestyle. If any of that sounds familiar, you're in the right place, because this week we've got my good friend Erik Fisher, who has spent over a decade exploring what makes people truly productive. Erik Fisher is the host of the Beyond the To-Do List podcast, and he has talked with top experts about the habit, strategies, and mindset shifts that lead to real results. And he's here to share what he's learned, break down some common myths, and help you take control of your time. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Erik, my friend, how are you doing today?
I am great. Thanks again for having me back. It's been a while. I don't remember the last time, but it's long overdue. So
yes, it is. So
it has been a while, but it's always great having Erik on the show. If you don't know who Erik is, you should. Erik Fisher is the producer and host of the long-running Beyond the To-Do List podcast for over 13 years. We just did the math, so we know. He's talked with experts on how to implement productivity strategies into their personal and professional lives. When he's not thinking about productivity, he's watching Star Wars, Marvel movies with his kids, singing karaoke in his head, or spending time with his wife. Erik, thanks again for being here. And on the Marvel topic, I haven't started watching it yet, but have you started watching the new Daredevil at all?
I rewatched the first 3 seasons before the new season came out, and I am right on it every week. I love a weekly drop of a TV show much more than a binge. So I'm right there with you. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Awesome. I watched the first 2, but I just got slammed, so I haven't watched the other one. So I'm excited to dive into that as well.
Take them with you on the plane, Jeff.
That's right. Well, I'll be studying my talk on the plane.
That's true.
So on the way back. On the way back. Yeah,
there you go.
On the way back. Something to look forward to. Anyway, another thing to look forward to is our pals over at Ecamm. And you can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. Use the code Jeff15. You can save 15% on your first purchase. They are what makes the show possible, and we love them for that. And it's a great software. It's a great community. Katie's over there. Doc is over there. All the good people of Ecamm. They answer your questions. Make sure you follow them on all the socials. They have a Discord channel, which is amazing well. So ecamm.com/Jeff. If you're wanting to do live production or even any sort of video, you need to check them out and give them a try. But we're talking about productivity today. And this was an interesting thing that Erik kind of threw my way when we started talking about coming on the show. And there's no shortage of people who give you productivity advice. There's some really great YouTube channels out there that have some stuff. But Erik's coming from in a way that, okay, he's heard all the advice. He knows what's kind of in the space of productivity. But what does it mean to make it personal for you? Because if not, it just doesn't work, and you keep bouncing from one thing to another. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to personalize your productivity. And I'm just going to jump right into it, Erik. Like, you've interviewed countless experts on productivity. So what's the biggest misconception people have when trying to boost their efficiency?
Well, people are always coming at it from this idea that, once you have that thought, you know what, I need to be more productive. The key word there is that word more. So they start going about trying to do more. So they make a list of all the stuff. They try out apps. They make color-coded to-do lists, like kind of like a preschool thing you hang up on your fridge. Right. But real productivity doesn't work that way. It doesn't burn you out. It doesn't make you think you have to do everything, because if there's one thing that I've learned from talking to so many people, especially like Oliver Berkman recently, is that there's always more that you could be doing. And so it kind of is this existential kind of question of, okay, how much is enough overall? Like, pick your compartment, like of annual or quarterly or monthly or weekly or daily or hourly. How much is enough? Like, where do you draw the line? And then how do you optimize to get done what you are giving yourself permission to do, or what you've accepted as tasks from others? Because we all have bosses, whether it's us or somebody else. How do we square that away with them as to what's acceptable? So you really need to, instead of going for the be more productive and get more done, which you in fact may need to do, but it's not about the more, it's about the what and the how many, and being okay with that.
I love that. And I love this notion of it has to be personalized, right? Because it's no one size fits all strategy for productivity. I remember reading the book Time by Dan Pink, where he talks about, there's early birds who they get up. That's when they're at their most productive. There's night owls. They're productive later in the day. But then there's also third birds, which they get their productivity kind of midway through the day. And you have to put yourself in that position to know, I'm an early bird, I'm a third bird, or I'm a night owl, and kind of apply your productivity around that, right? You see it so much on YouTube too. It's like, hey, here's this productivity strategy. So you look at it, you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to download the Notion dashboards. I'm going to get into this. And you realize this isn't for me because it's built for somebody else. So, Erik, you talk a lot about productivity strategies that work for you. How can someone like identify the workflow that works for them versus just seeing whatever YouTube trend is out there and following the crowd?
Well, you've already tapped into it a little bit with Daniel Pink's book, and I actually have another one to suggest for you, which is The Power of When by Dr. Michael Bruce, where he talks about chronotypes. And this is something that I revisited recently and also had him on the show back in January for another new book. And essentially, he has he doesn't just go with birds, he goes with mammals. And he says that there's wolves and lions and bears. And then he even adds in dolphins. And so let's see if I can remember correctly, because I retested it myself to find out which one I was. The lions were the early risers to go out and, attack and forage first thing in the morning. Bears were kind of that wake up at the, normal time and go to sleep at a air quotes, normal time. Wolves were the ones that were up late because they were howling at the moon. And then dolphins, and I think this is appropriate, kind of have an all day, like up and down and up and down. Last time, I think when this book came out, I think it was like late 2016, early 2017. And I was a bear. And that surprised me. And we'll get into that later, because I was rising early all the time. But these days, I'm a dolphin, because I find that my energy is coming and dropping. It's like it's rising and it's dropping, and it's rising and it's dropping. And now that I know within the last few weeks that I've been diagnosed with sleep apnea, I don't know that type is necessarily true so much as the symptoms were showing themselves to be dolphin-like. So throwing that out there. But yeah, the key here is I really think productivity is so much more about energy relation than it is time. It's more time. It's less time management. Productivity is way less about time management than it is energy management. And so if you're trying to live somebody else's chronotype or schedule, you're finding friction at every given moment of the day. Your brain has rhythms and patterns and even a gear kind of shifting operating mechanism that I even found out a little bit more about with somebody, Me Too Steroni. She talked about this, where basically, so to get back to your question, how do we find out when we're our best, or, which chronotype? One, I would say check your chronotype, which I can give the link to that in a minute. The other is do a time audit, but not of what you're doing, although that is a component. So I would do that. I would write down, over the course of a week, what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you felt doing it. Was your energy high? Was your energy mid? Was it low? And so you can kind of track those energy patterns, as well as kind of try to match them to the right task once you have more data.
So on this note, Erik, like I want to talk about, like, how do your personal productivity styles evolve over time, and the strategy you recommend for adapting those changes in your work habits. And like, I really like what you said, that because the older I get, the less I'm worried about, like, time tracking. It's energy, like you said, the energy of doing different parts of the day. And so I used to be like a night owl. Like that's what I was, because I worked on a fire station. We had those shift hours and all that stuff in college. But as I got older, I wanted to spend time with my wife. And if I'm up all night and then she's going to school, we were just not seeing each other, and it didn't work, even though I was productive. So I have switched to, I usually go to bed at 9 o'clock and then get up at 5 or earlier. And that's just the way it works now, which people are going, oh my gosh. But I'm trying to get enough sleep in, because you and I have talked, and I've been on your show talking about how important sleep is. So the question is, like, how do these personal productivity styles evolve? Like, and what strategies do you use to know that you need to change, or adapting to these, like the new chronotypes that you discover by maybe reading this book?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the key here, and we've talked about this before, you and I personally, is you've got to ask the question, what season am I in right now? Like, that's what you've done now. You're an empty nester. It's just you and your wife. Well, it makes sense for you to optimize the time that you have around being able to connect with her. And so you've kind of taken into account her as the main variable and then adjust it accordingly. So, so I would go back to my previous answer and say, screw your chronotype. You can shift your chronotype.
Right.
You can make it work. Like I said before, like I was testing as a bear back then in like 2016, but I was really operating more like a lion. I was getting up at 5, you know this, and I was getting 2 to 3, 4 hours of work done. That's overestimating, but
right.
Getting up at 5, and then nobody else was up till like 7 something, and I could get a good solid 2 hours in, and then people would awake, and then I would do things, and then I would shift things. But then I found out, okay, I've got to go to bed at I felt like bed at 9. It was still more like 10.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to that seasonal thing, right? Like Jeff, your season when you had college kids / teenagers / junior high / all the way down to newborns, like, things don't work the same all throughout that time. Like,
right.
Your productivity style isn't a tattoo you get one time and it stays that way forever, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a haircut. Your hair, I had hair at one point. Now I don't. That's a season. So it's really all about seasons, and and again, you can kind of forecast this. That's one of the positive things about measuring things or tracking things quarterly or annually, or even that 5-year plan. Like right now, we have an empty nest except for my junior hire, and that's a whole different. And boy, is it a whole different season of life than it was when we had 2 kids. One that was, finishing out high school and going to college, and right. Another that was like finishing out elementary school. Things were way different then.
Yeah. I love that you said it's seasonal, and then we've got our friend, but mostly Disney, saying that's exactly my schedule. Plus it's quiet in the early morning, so I can, edit video or read emails. That was one of the reasons too. And I wanted to see my wife get up, getting ready for the morning. That's when we could chat. But I love the idea of seasons. And I think you taught me that, Eric, that like, it's okay that your seasons change. It's just, you just have to learn and adapt. And Gary says too, he's usually an early riser, generally more productive in the morning. And it's really funny because I was never that way, but as I get older, it's the energy thing for me. It's like energy. And then I move tasks like editing video, where it's more of a passive thing instead of me trying to be creative, create images, create a new course, do it, whatever it is. Like and I move those roles to where that energy is the most optimized, I guess.
Yeah, you're planning your day around your creativity as well, and where you're going to need that energy and stuff. And time aside, Eric, you've come across so many different productivity styles and systems just by interviewing people on your podcast. And I know you've also put yourself in some systems of productivity, but can you share a time if you've ever abandoned, and I'm putting in air quotes, a proven productivity strategy that just it wasn't working for you? Maybe you went into it super optimistic and you're like, wow, this seems really great. And as you're actually doing it and implementing it in your life, you're like, this just doesn't fit me. I gotta abandon that. Has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, I would say, this links right to what we were just talking about. And again, it links right to seasons. There was a season where I was a bear, but because of anxiety and stress over a certain project, over an extended period of time where that project was not completed yet, and then finally was, I trained myself or habitualized myself into a 5 a.m. riser. And it didn't matter if I said, I'm going to sleep in, and set my alarm for 7 to 7:30, 5 o'clock. Body did it, would not listen. Mm-hmm. I would try to, and then I wouldn't just laying there. So I eventually leaned into it and worked with it. And then over time that shifted and went away. And I was like, wait, now I want to get up at 5 o'clock and do it, and it doesn't work. Like there's been so many times. So that was like 2016, 17, through that next, couple of years there into 2019. I think it was finally around the pandemic hitting around 2020 where I was able to sleep in and didn't want to, and it had flipped. So it's like, you can't always get what you want. But if you try to, sometimes you get what you need. The Rolling Stones. I didn't think I was going to quote that, but that's what it felt like. And nowadays when I'm like this dolphin, where and again it's due to sleep apnea, so it's like I'll have bursts of energy, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I can't even stare at a screen. I can't even and I'll close my eyes, and I need to recharge. Mm-hmm. So one of the most popular things, or I think the thing is, when we say proven productivity approach or strategy or method, it's proven for somebody, but that doesn't mean it's proven for everybody. So let's caveat that. But again, this 5 a.m. early morning wake up and work out or work on things method, it is not for everybody. If it doesn't work for you, do not, it may seem like it's a scam to you, and maybe it is to your body and to your mind, but you don't have to stick with it. You can try it out and you can let it go. Find out what works for you.
So on that note, there's, a lot of people watching this, and I know Gary, he does podcasting. He's a musician. Dustin, oh my gosh, he's juggling his developers, and he's always adding new things to Magi. So a lot of us juggle multiple roles, right? Like, what's your advice for balancing productivity in different areas of life without burnout? We talked about seasons. Like I stayed at home. Like, I have my buildings outside of my house. I have a 30-second commute. So I was able to be there for the kids. A lot of people don't have that luxury or privilege. So how do you tell people to balance this when you don't want to ignore your family, you don't want to ignore your loved ones, but you also have all this stuff and opportunities come, and like Dustin, I like to use him as an example. He's worked really hard, and all of a sudden it's jumped, right? Magi's taken off. It's a great program. A lot of people love it. How do you balance this stuff when opportunities happen? You got to change your schedule. Something happens in your life. Your parents get sick. So how do you do this without burning out? Because a lot of these productivity tools, what they do is actually add to the risk of burnout and not actually take away the stress and friction.
Well, first and foremost, I would say you've got to get better at brutal prioritization. If we're all juggling work and home life, and then maybe a side hustle, and we have a social life with some friends, and then maybe we have a hobby that isn't just scrolling on our phone. Like, we've got all these things, but you can't win in all of them equally, or you're going to be losing in all of them, or most of them anyway. This is what Michael Hyatt talks about when he's talking about winning at work and succeeding at life, that balance doesn't mean that we're giving equal time to everything. It means that we're giving the right amount of time to the right things at the right time. And so even Greg McKeown is talking about this in Essentialism. He talks all about doing less, but doing it better. And so that's where you come back to prioritization. You have to decide, okay, of this hierarchy. And I go back to this with you, Jeff, you centered your schedule first around your wife in this season, so that priority was there first. Now, I think there might be there's probably an easy second place and third place and fourth place. And once you have those in place, and I know this sounds so oversimplified, but you can make the systems and you can make boundaries and all of that after you've done these big rock priorities in place first. The rest of it kind of falls into place, and then it gets easier to say no to all the other stuff and occasionally shift things in and out. But you've got to have that brutal prioritization first.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And as we kind of transition into talking too about this energy management, we've talked about energy management a lot and its importance. And Erik, you just mentioned, let's do less, but do it better. Productivity, not just being about doing more, but also about managing your energy and when you want to do stuff. Can you kind of explain how one goes about understanding their energy management, what projects need certain energy? And I'm always wondering, all right, what is a task where it's just really boring versus I actually need a different amount of energy to do this task, right? Can you kind of explain how you've worked and realized, hey, I'm going to need this amount of energy. It's better at this time of day to this sort of project, matching energy to the tasks itself.
Yeah. So for me, I can try to map it, and for the most part, I can say that it's typically this 1 to 2 hour window where I've got the most energy, and so at that point, when I really need to have clarity of thought and make decisions, then that's when that's going to happen. And so then I match tasks there, and there's usually a good window of in the morning, or luckily it fell kind of around now for us and this conversation. So um but that's how that works, and so at least I know that. And then there's another peak in the afternoon. Other people, they may get that first peak as they're rising early or as they're going. But one of the key things, again, I mentioned a neuroscientist that I talked with recently, Mitu Staroni. She's got a book called Hyper Efficient, and she basically breaks it down as to your brain has different gears. Like if you've done a stick shift on a a manual vehicle, then this, like you have to hit the clutch, and then you get into one, or first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and you kind of only somebody who knows how to drive one of those, or then switches over to an automatic, can feel how they work together in kind of like synergy, or knows what's going on when an automatic is automatically shifting. And I didn't get that at first till I learned stick. Haven't driven stick in years, but I still remember what to do with it and all of that. And that's what this is. I mean, this is the best metaphor that I can give you in terms of that. And it takes a little bit of practice. It's kind of figuring out when those, I mean, it's kind of listing off, okay, what are the main tasks I have for a week, and kind of organizing them, playing chess with them, if you will, across the week, as to, because it's not just certain days. Or certain times of day. It's also certain days. Like Monday and Friday, I don't record podcasts at all. That is all admin. And then I place them accordingly, because I have less energy on those 2 days. And I know that. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are days where I allow that to happen, but only during certain windows that people can like check those or book those. And so then, and it's always when I have kind of a peak, like creative time, and then I do other admin stuff later. So that's some of the example of what I'm doing, but it's going to be a little bit contextual for everybody.
So we just talked about peak performance hours, right? So, and how to identify them. And what I'm interested in is a lot of people I know, and I'm going to go back to Dustin because just on top of my mind, because I've been thinking about AI stuff all week. And let's say, he's got his chronotype. He knows when he's most creative. He's got his peak performance hours. But then all of a sudden, ChatGPT rolls out all this new stuff, and he's got to implement it into Magi. So he's actually taking a stick shift, and instead of starting in first, he's got to slam it into fifth gear. And a lot of people are in that situation. Like, there's life changes. We talked about season. They may be on that cusp of like, spring or fall, where it's not really a season. It's kind of that middle kind of halfway thing. So how do they plan or structure their day to maximize the productivity when it's changing like that? Because that's where the friction, at least for me in my life, has happened, is when I hit those transitional periods where I've got, this is where I'm productive. I know what I'm doing, but all of a sudden, blankety blank, I've got to do this because this is an opportunity, or this client needs this, or this thing happened. So what do you do in those situations?
So there's a medical term called triage, which means that you are doing a quick scan of a person to see who's going to live like this. Okay, this one's going to live. Okay, they don't need treatment right now, and you move them on. Or this one needs attention right now. We can't move them till we deal with it right now. And so having that kind of mental, I mean, again, life happens, right? So you can be as optimized as you can possibly be, and then life throws you a curveball, and you've got to reschedule everything. And you've got to suddenly work on one thing that it's not the right time of day. You don't have the right time of energy. You already have something scheduled you were going to do then, and so on. And that's okay. It's going to be okay, because, as again, you practice that triage mode so you get good at being able to, like, in other words, you almost need to have a checklist, a triage checklist, where something gets thrown at you, and based on context of who is this, is it you or is it someone else? Is it a client or is it, you realizing something's, oh my gosh, I've got to jump on this right now because it's a brand new thing. And this is like, it's a window of opportunity that I have to grab, or, insert problem here. Once you've practiced enough of that, and once you have enough of a structure, like, you can lean into that. And here, I mean, it's kind of like, oh crap, I suddenly have this report due tomorrow and I've got to pull an all-nighter. All right. Well, as long as you all had everything else, I mean, now I would question your productivity system if you suddenly realized that, right. But it happens to everybody. Usually it's from outside of ourselves. Back then in college days, yeah, that was a screw up and that was our own and we had to own it. But, one night isn't going to kill you, but like a marathon of that suddenly, oh, you've got to do this for weeks on end. You can't live like that. So just knowing that you can be flexible and, I mean, again, let's take the all-nighter. I never was good at them, by the way. I would get to about 2 or 3 in the morning and I'm like, oh, God, I've got to get some sleep. I'm getting nothing done. Right. And so you pound the Red Bull. We didn't have Red Bull back then, but we do now.
No dose. Remember those no dose tablets? You would chew up it was just caffeine.
Yeah.
And Mountain Dew. That would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. And there's even stuff. I mean, there's a thing I've been using recently that's a caffeine. It's called Brain Bullet. And I've got a deal with them that I'm working on. But it is a cool little chew. And it's got like 80 milligrams of caffeine and then 160 of L-theanine. So it's like 2 cans of Coke, but then it's got twice the L-theanine. And I'll tell you, I'll pop it in my mouth and I'll start chewing it, and then it dissolves and it's gone. And I don't get any jitters. I just get it's not even a jolt. It's more like I feel I'm present again. So yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to like sell products here, but I've been kind of fascinated with how it's working.
So you mentioned triage, and it's really funny you said that, because I have been watching The Pit, which is on Max now, which is a fabulous medical drama. And just like last week, it was they were triaging, and they were just doing slap bracelets when they were coming in the door because they had a mass event, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody. But anyway, that was the reason I like this show is because it's the most real ER that people are saying. I have a friend who's an ER doctor, and he, this is what it is like. But how they triage, like they do a quick assessment, they slap a bracelet on it, and it goes from there into the process. So if you want a good example of what real triage is like, the last couple episodes of The Pit on the Max is a great example of that.
I'm squeamish, so I'll go ahead and avoid it.
Pass on that one. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We were just talking about things to kind of increase our energy levels. And I think no matter if you're, to put it into terms of what we've been talking about, a bear or a wolf or whatever, you're going to get into a slump. For, the everyday person, it's going to be that afternoon slump if you're in a 9-to-5 sort of position. But at some point throughout your workday, your productivity cycle, you're going to slump. Both of you, I'll ask both of you, because I know you both have talked about this. Any strategies for overcoming that afternoon slump? I like going for a walk. I like getting some sort of energy boost. But I also know, there are other things, like if I go out into my living room and I watch a little YouTube just to kind of break out of something, I want something that's going to get me out of the slump, but then also push me to be productive again, not further spiral into an even darker slump, which I feel like sometimes, watching YouTube or something can be a little different. So any productivity or any strategies around getting over that slump, Erik?
Well, there's a bunch of different things you can do. So I'm going to go with the thing you just said, which is, you get up. I'm assuming that if you're sitting there and you're at a desk and you're staring at a screen as your normal work mode, that then you getting up outside and getting into some sunlight really helps you out. And here's why. Because one, you're flipping all the switches. You were sitting, so now you're standing. You were indoors, so now you're outdoors. You were staring at a screen. Now you're not. So that's why I would almost advise against the YouTube, but I totally get you. I do that too. Because it's, sitting and mindlessly letting something fun wash over you versus like intently staring at a screen can be somewhat different. Hydrating can definitely help. I mean, and not just the standing, but not just the sitting, but standing, but also the stationary, but moving. That's another switch. So it's doing all of those and doing all of those as a break over 15 minutes. Oh, another one is if you were isolated, call somebody, have a phone call, socialize. And so it also works the other way around. For someone that's social for their job, isolate. If you were standing, go sit. If you whatever, just make up your fake panel and then flip all the switches the opposite one, like a circuit breaker, so that you turn off the expending of energy and then finish the break, flip them back, go back to work, and you will find a huge difference has happened. There are other things too. I mean, often we find that we have a slump in the afternoon. This is where you can do a nap. Again, Jeff, I know you and I have both found lots of Nappuccino. That's where you either have a shot of a caffeine and lay down. I mean, again, caffeine takes about 20 minutes to hit your bloodstream. So that's a good time to just, even if you don't fall asleep, in fact, maybe not even falling asleep, find a chair that you can lean back in, close your eyes. Maybe you have a blindfold that you use, and maybe some noise canceling earbuds or headphones or something, and just let yourself go. Set an alarm on your, go and do not disturb with your Apple Watch or whatever you're using, and have it wake you up in 20 minutes or ping you in 20 minutes, even if you don't fall asleep. The studies show that if your eyes are closed and you're not excessively focused on a problem at that moment or explicitly focused on work, that mental break can have the, almost, it can have the power of a nap, even if you don't fall asleep. And even if you do fall asleep, you don't want to go too long, because if you start getting down into the beginning of REM cycles or, actually falling asleep, that's when, we've all had this, the
you wake up and
hangover.
You feel sick. Yeah. You're like,
yes.
Oh, I'm gonna
so I typically will set mine for like 30 minutes because it takes me 5 to 7 minutes to even just kind of get comfortable, and then it happens. So that's what I do. Trying to think of what if there's anything else. Sometimes a snack, even a little bit of hydration, and a very small but healthy, like nuts. Having some nuts and some water or something like that.
Yeah. So for me, and we talked about this before, like I start a wind down sequence. I try to go to bed and get up at the same time every day, because I've read more and more how important that is. I mean, even fighting like dementia, like in your elderly years, which I'm getting elder. And so I want to make sure to fight that off, because I'm already a little, but that's important. And it's like I start at 9, but I like read for a while. I get away from screens and then I go to bed. The other thing that I really like is I use an app called Focus To Do. And what it does is it takes my task list and then it puts it to a Pomodoro timer, so I can work on that task. It shows it to me, and then it counts down, and then I get a 5-minute break. And I get up and I usually walk to the house or walk up and down, check the mail, do something physical. Then I come back. And after so many of those breaks, it gives you a 15-minute break. And so that helps me prioritize it, especially if I can move those priorities on what I'm working on based on energy. Like I mentioned, podcasts for me is more of a passive editing thing instead of like really like concentrating and trying to come up with a new idea or whatever. So I can move those tasks to that size. So, and I want to pull up this from Dustin, and he says, I like it that he knows himself so much. He goes, I've been outrunning burnout for about a year now. So on that note, like, what are some signs that someone is prioritizing tasks over energy management? And then how can they course correct, Erik?
Yeah. So one of the things that, I'm trying to think of, what you're doing is essentially, if you're putting tasks over energy
management.
Yeah, you're gonna see it, like you're gonna feel it, like you're gonna feel like you're being ruled by a to-do list, right? Like it's gonna feel like, what do I have to do now? What do I have to do now? What do I have to do now? Like you'll constantly feel like you're checking things off a list, which can feel good. But at the same time, you're not going to feel motivated. You're going to feel like, you're ticking boxes, but that's all you're doing. And so what you want to do is essentially, you're having headaches, you're having fatigue, you're even having restlessness. So again, this is where you want to come down and say, okay, well, what of these things are the easier things to do? Which things can I check off? That's one of the break things I would have also suggested had I thought of it at the time, which is save some of the things that you need to do. If they're fun things to do, use that as your launch back in as, ooh, now I get to do this. This is my fun thing. I know that's kind of sometimes hard for us to equate, like, ooh, this task is fun. But invariably, we can all go through our day and say, well, which of these things do I want to do versus which of these things do I have to do? And when it all feels like it's have to do, none of it's going to happen, or at least not happen as fun or as easy. One of the other things that you want to do, though, is, again, you're going to match stuff. We talked about this already, where you're matched the right task to the right time of day, to the right energy level, etc. And it's kind of that Venn diagram. And again, only from having done your homework as to when and what and how can you actually start to align those and make the circles, like, as much as you want those circles to converge into like one circle where they're so overlapped it doesn't even matter, right? But one of the other key things I would say is build in like energizers to your day. And what I mean by that is maybe it's a quick errand that is enjoyable. It's like, or maybe it's it's a special snack that you reward yourself with for getting through a certain time. Or maybe
not a drink, Connor, not a drink. Okay.
Yes. No,
gotta be productive.
No. A different kind of drink. Or maybe like me, you bust out like a Bluetooth speaker and you hit like one of the you play a really loud Jimi Hendrix song suddenly while you go and walk around the house and like get pumped up. It's like changing the stimulus instead of just stationary. I mean, we talked about this where it's flipping the switches, but again, most of us aren't doing that. Most of us are gluing ourselves, even if it's a standing desk and a sitting desk at the same time, and we switch between them. We're at that desk. Maybe you need to use an iPad, and maybe you need to change up the scenery and go and sit and relax and do email that way. Maybe you need to ideate by talking it into your phone instead of staring at a screen. Like, all these different modalities will, because sometimes, again, if you're in one of those modes where it's like, I have so much to do and it all just looks like gray.
Yeah.
Then you got to break it up into, okay, well then this one's black and that one's white. And that's where I'm going to do that. Like, you have to, like, that's what I've had to do. Otherwise I get bored sitting here all day.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the different modalities and going different. So it's really funny you said that, because I have like Blue's Clues thinking chair where I go and where I write my emails and stuff. Like, it's a different spot that for some reason is where I read and I can consume content, but then I was where I create stuff too. It's kind of like a creative, I don't know, fortress of solitude that I kind of have that I like to use. So I thought that was really interesting that you said that. I want to pull up some comments from our friends really quickly before we move on. One of the things is, but mostly Disney says, I have trouble coming back from breaks. Yeah, I feel your pain. And, Dustin says most days is about 50% ticking boxes and 80% doing things that weren't on the task list but needed immediate attention. And yes, that is the correct math. And then Rich Graham says, I get stuck in a loop. I need to do X before I should do Y. And then, I got to do Z, and that relies something on Y. And like, that's a problem, especially if you're a solopreneur and you have a team or a VA. How do you handle that, Eric, when you're waiting on stuff and you have to hit the brakes and you have a team, you're waiting on this document or this image to post this thing, and like, it sucks the air of the energy that you're doing on this task. So what do you do on those types of situations?
So my brain just went in two different directions at once. So we're going to go with the XYZ. So if I'm waiting on people to do things for me or deliver things to me so I can then do my part of it, then I have to have a list for myself that's just me stuff that I can switch over to, so I'm not just sitting in waiting mode and making them an excuse as to why I'm not doing anything. And again, that's two separate lists. And so you've got the one where it's circling around and you're part of a team or you're part of a workflow, but then there's the where you're the only part of the workflow. Mm-hmm. So you have those two different lists, or maybe it's three different lists. I don't know. But anyway, the other piece to this that answers well, I need to do X because then I can do Y, and then I'm waiting on that for Z, and so on. One of the things that I've discovered is, and I'm really, and Jeff, you know this, we've talked about this years ago. There was a project that I had to do. Well, it happened again with something else recently, but it wasn't nearly as big. It was a smaller thing, but it's one of those things where if you don't know what you don't know about a project or a task, then it's as big as it can fill your mind. Like, it will expand to fill, oh my gosh, that's a 3-hour thing. And so this 3-hour thing, I just said, all right, you know what? I'm just going to, what's the first thing that I need to do about this thing? Like, what's the first thing or the next thing that has to be done with it?
Mm-hmm.
I started it and got about 2 to 5 minutes into it and realized I'm going to be done with this after about 15 minutes. And I was kicking myself because that thing I kept putting off, thinking it was going to be a 3-hour thing, was only a 15-minute thing. And it reawakened this, okay, you know what? You've got to start identifying for that list of me stuff, for when I'm waiting for other people to give me and, deliver me stuff, whether it's a client, whether it's a teammate or a vendor, or, insert here, my stuff can be, okay, what's the next thing, or what's the one first thing that I can do for that project to kickstart it, that, and give myself a timer of 2 to 5 minutes to just kind of test the waters and see how deep it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. You mentioned a couple of things. One thing is, made me think of open loops. Like, I hate to have open loops. Like, if there's something in my brain that I need to do, like, they were talking about in the comments, I can't remember who exactly said, Rich Graham said it, like, those things bother me. And so the more I can shut down loops, I think that is the most important thing for me to do. But that's not always easy to handle. So I thought what you just said is pretty good, but something, go ahead.
Let me throw in here real quick. Sometimes when I was just explaining that whole, this 3-hour thing, I hadn't even touched it yet. Like, I didn't do any of work on it at all. But in my head, it lived. It was an unopened loop, but it was already an open loop because I was already thinking about it and stressing about it. And so starting to close the loop was starting on it at all.
Yeah. Right. And Connor knows this because I've talked to him about it too, is that I'm horrible, even after all this time, of estimating how long it takes to do something, right? Like, we all think, oh, I can just do this and I can bang it out. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, I didn't know I had to do this and this and this. And that's what struggles. And that's also an open loop. But I'll tell you something that's not an open loop. But if it's been an open loop for you, you need to rectify it today. Is our friends over at Ecamm. Like, you could go get that today and shut that open loop down by going to ecamm.com/Jeff and using code Jeff15 to save 15% on your first purchase. By the way, it's an awesome program. That's what we use to make this show. Podcasters love it. Erik loves it. Connor loves it. We all love it here. So check it out at ecamm.com/Jeff. All right, Connor, I'll let you do your loop.
Ecamm's the best. It's help you be a better, more productive live streamer. We talk about AI so much on this show and how it's changing pretty much everything, whether it's content creation, helping us brainstorm, and then also helping us with tasks through AI automations. So many tasks are being automated that might have filled up our to-do list, a year ago. But Erik, what do you think productivity will look like with AI side by side in the next 5 to 10 years? Is it going to be something where there's no more quote, mundane tasks and AI is doing it all? Or are we going to say, we're really focused on the big projects, on doing them right? Or is productivity going to be about how many AI automations can we stack up and put in place? Where do you see it going in the next few years here?
I mean, again, AI is this thing that everybody's interested in now at the moment, and I think rightfully so. I think we don't know what we don't know, when it comes to it. I think in a lot of ways we think it's going to change things, and it already has, and we know this. But I think when it comes down to it, we don't know. Anybody who can predict or is trying to predict right now what things are going to look like when it comes to AI and task management. I mean, there's brand new things. Thing is like, how, like, let's go, actually, let's do some applicability here of some of the stuff we already talked about. So in order for AI to be helpful to you, it's going to either need to do stuff for you that you're then not doing, or it's going to need to help you organize your time, your day, your energy level. So imagine being able, but you would still need to do some of the plugging in of the data for it to then be able to be your assistant, your intern, like we know, right? Mm-hmm. So it would need to know your chronotype. It would need to know your task list. It would need to know when you're which tasks you like to do, or which tasks you want to delegate. And once you can have kind of these buckets and have it be aware of those things, as well as like reading your email. This is partly why I'm kind of like, oh man, Apple is still behind again. Behind is not the right word. Apple is still doing its Apple thing where they've announced intentions. Yes. Well, they perfect, they polish.
Okay. That's what we call it.
And they personalize. Like Jeff, you and I did an episode of my show about this when they announced the Apple Intelligence stuff. The thing that I was really excited about was it being able to really dive in and privately and securely know me, or at least what it knew from me from my devices with my permission, and be able to step in and offer assistance and help, etc. And that's, I still think, where I want to see it go. But for now, I'm very much like, okay, keep it siloed, keep it safe, and let it do its thing and figure out how to make it do its thing better over time. And I think that's what we're seeing.
So, because we've had these massive shifts in the way we do work in the last couple of years. So remote and hybrid work have shifted the way that people structure their time, right? So, I mean, now you can actually take home that work with you that you never were able to do before. Let's just expect it to work from home. So how has this shifted the way people structure their time? And is there any new productivity challenges that have emerged from this shift that you've seen?
Well, even before I was fully remote, there was this thought that just because we can work anytime and anywhere doesn't mean we should. Right. The lines were blurring. And once I realized that I was not remote working, but I was checking my work email at home on my phone. And I'm like, wait a second, they're not paying me for this time. I may be salaried, but I am not sitting in my cubicle. Right. And, so I immediately was like, oh, you know what? Disconnect. I turned off that work email. And that was a role that made sense to do. There are other times though, where, having that quick back and forth change makes sense. I think one of the key things when it comes to, remote and or hybrid work is this idea of communication overload. If we don't have a way to have boundaries for those Slack pings, or remember when it was Skype and email and texting and phone calls, and it could be the same person that would randomly use any one of those four things, but you didn't know based on which one they were doing, what hierarchy of they're calling me. This is going to be an emergency. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
What? Like coworker, what are you thinking? Slack me or email. Yeah. Like if this is an important, email me,
I did a little jig when Skype died. I did a little dance.
Yes, so did I. So RIP Skype. But yeah, so it's that communication overload where you've got to have a hierarchy of channels. And if you're in an organization that does not have a hierarchy, that it goes something like, if it's a phone call, because people still do those, that's an emergency. Less urgent, but still somewhat important, is texting or slacking, depending. Below that is email. And then below that is, I'm not even sure what, but ultimately, keep in mind, people are going through their day with Zoom fatigue and too many notifications and too many jumping from channel to channel to channel to channel without a hierarchy, just doing these quick check-ins, or, hey, can we have a 5-minute call? Or, so that's one piece. The other piece is then, again, because we can work anytime and anywhere. The boundaries are eroded. And so if your laptop is with you, that's why one of the things that I would used to do was I would use my laptop at home, and then when I was done for the day, I would unplug it and I would put it away in a bag, and I would put that bag like under my bed or in the corner of my closet, so that I had to go multiple steps to get there. And of course, then that went away with like, well, now my phone's in my pocket all the time, like I talked about earlier with the work email. So
what you can do is
what are those boundaries?
You can take your phone and freeze it in like a jar of water, just like a credit card, like they used to say to get it out. So just put your phone in the freezer in a glass of water, and then when you really need it, you just wait till it thaw out. So that's my tip for the day.
You'll be constantly buying rice to re-put it in. Which I don't even know if that works anymore, to be honest. So.
Yeah, they don't.
As we wrap up, Erik, it's always great to talk to you about so many productivity, helpfulness and tips and all this stuff. You're always talking about the latest trends on your show for productivity. So simple question to kind of wrap everything up. What's one productivity trend right now that excites you, and what's one trend that you think might be overhyped?
Well, I'm going to go with the one that I think is overhyped, and here's why. I think it's this whole habit tracking thing. Now, I get it. Habits are great. Atomic Habits is a great book. Having the right habits is a good thing. But when it comes down to it, it's really training yourself to habitually react to a certain stimulus at the right time in the right place, and that's great. However, I think we are much more fluid beings than that, or flexible beings, or should be. And so habits are one thing, but then you've got to untrain them and retrain when it comes to seasons. And that's why I'm really, again, we've been talking about, the thing that I'm most excited about is I've been trying to figure out ways to have more energy, and the whole energy-based planning thing is something that I've really been leaning into in terms of those gears and the brain. And I'm especially excited to see how furthering that study or self-management or self-assessment and self-management with that is going to go. Because one of the things that I've definitely been lacking energy, or not just lacking it, but working through a low threshold of it, but also not paying attention to when it was rising and falling, and being able to really almost like surfing, ride the wave and get way more done with what's available to me at the time. And then when it's lower, still feel like I'm content with what I'm getting done there as well.
That's awesome. This has been such a good conversation. We've had so many great comments. But Erik Fisher, I want this last part of the show for people that I know you're speaking, you've got your amazing podcast. So I'm going to give you a few minutes at the end here to promote yourself and let people know where they can find out more about you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I would welcome anybody to head on over to beyondthetodolist.com. That's where new episodes are coming out all the time. Great conversations that I am thrilled to have with people, some of which I've mentioned in this conversation. And there's a huge back catalog. Again, we did the math. It's been almost 13 years of conversations, almost weekly, 500 plus episodes. It's getting near 600 now. And so you'll find something in that catalog to give you a new idea, a fresh creative twist, or whatever. And if you don't, there's a message at the top, or a little a contact button where you can say, hey, do an episode on this, and I will listen. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah. My favorite, he's had him on a couple times, is Todd Henry. I really like your interviews that you've got him on 4 or 5 times. I think it's amazing. Yeah. His books are great. So Erik's got some really, really heavy hitters over there. Erik's a heavy hitter as well, but he's got some really great. I always find more books. He makes me buy way too many books by listening to his podcast, but make sure you check that out. beyondthetodolist.com. Connor Brown has a new channel that, I think is pretty awesome. So tell us about that, Connor Brown, what you got going on.
At Theme Park Happy Hour over on Instagram. I'm showing you where to get the best drinks in the theme parks here in Orlando. We have a new theme park coming, Epic Universe, I'll be there opening day in May. If you want to go there, reach out to me, Connor, CONOR, at vacationkingdoms.com. I can get you there. And if you follow at Theme Park Happy Hour, you'll learn the best drinks that are there when it debuts. Erik, I'm with you on the habit tracker, but Jeff, I'd like you to get in the habit of saying, I love you, Connor, every single day. That's all I ask.
I do. I look at the mirror and say that. I just want to give a big shout out to all of our friends here that have showed up today, asked some good questions. Mr. Dustin Stout from Magi saying, so good. But mostly Disney saying, great show, gang. One of the things I wanted to show up earlier that Mostly Disney said, he goes, I was literally in the car heading to the range to hit balls and turn around to come watch the show. I'm hoping he's talking about golf is what I'm hoping. So let's go. Let's say it's golf. Not just any thing. So thank you so much for watching, but Mostly Disney. Thank you guys so much. We will be back next week. Thank you, Erik. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ecamm, for sponsoring the show. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.